There are so many elements and so many variables that you can have, some smoother transitions than others, but they are never, ever going to be easy peasy ever. They all require work.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be absolutely awesome. Our returning guest is the owner of RealityTax.ca and FischBooks Inc., Rachel Fisch. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me back. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's great to have you. And I know most of our listeners would probably know who you are. But for the very few that might not, maybe let's start off with just a little bit of a bio in terms of, how you ended up doing what you're doing today. And then we'll get into talking about what's been new in your world.
Yeah, I get that that's supposed to be a really short, simple question. But then you're like, oh God,
how far back? Well, let's go back to like early grade school. And
so in grade 2, no. Let's see. I think most of the bookkeeping folks out there would know me from, I used to teach QuickBooks webinars. So basically anybody who got certified between 2011 and 2016, I was probably, running those webinars and really involved there. I went to Deloitte for a little while, met some awesome people there, went to Sage Software for 3.5 years. So again, very involved in the bookkeeper community. I am a CPB, of course, on the board at CPB. So love seeing folks at CPB Ignite, which will be in Winnipeg this year. Let's see. And then, since then I've had a few adventures as well. So, but that's probably where most everybody knows me from.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've been involved in supporting people in the community for a very long time, which is fantastic, and you're well respected in the community, both in Canada, the United States, and also abroad, which is pretty cool. Now, you've developed a business called RealityTax.ca.
Yeah.
Let's maybe start with that. What's that all about, and why did you decide to go that route?
Funny story. But the beginning of that story actually starts in the fall of 2020. I was still at Sage. And there was some new regulation, coming into play in Ontario where real estate agents could now incorporate. So, with personal real estate corporations called PRECs, other provinces have had that actually for several years. I think BC had it for like a dozen years before Ontario did. And so anytime there's a regulation change, it's always really interesting to kind of look at it from a bookkeeper and accountant perspective to say, would this require additional services? Does this present the opportunity for a niche? Is there an opportunity here? And so I wasn't really sure what to do about it, but I did end up saving a couple of, social media handles that were related to real estate and accounting, a couple of domains, because I'm like one of those people that I think of a cool name and I buy the domain for it just in case it turns into something. And so what ended up happening was in Ontario, I could see, those who were definitely taking advantage of that opportunity, kind of promoting and marketing to real estate professionals. Let's set up your corporation, let's set up your books, let's, make sure that you get your taxes all paid and on time and all of those things. I took a bit of a different view, thinking if we're changing the way that real estate agents work, we might start to see changes in how brokerages work, because the dynamic between the brokerage and the agent may start to change a little bit. And so what's going on at the broker level in terms of accounting technology, and what are some opportunities there? And so I ended up finding a technology called Loft 47, who is a fantastic, basically back office, full cloud, end-to-end, a few apps on both sides, really kind of round out that full tech stack, but will fully replace all of the desktop paperful stuff that brokerages are using. And so I spent a couple of years just kind of on my own for fun, really fine-tuning this workflow. And so I left Sage. I went to work on mergers and acquisitions for a U.S. accounting firm. We had done a couple of acquisitions already. And somebody mentioned, hey, a buddy of mine is selling his firm. Do you want to talk to him? And this would happen all the time, right? It's like, hey, you're in that space. They're interested in your insights on it or whatever. And then I realized who it was, which was RealityTax, and that they had taken the leap when I was still a Sage employee and didn't really know what to do and just kind of did things in the background. And they had actually taken the leap and gone and created a firm and launched it in September of 2020. And so this was the summer of 2022. And my first question was, why aren't you working more with brokerages? Like, well, you can't really do that in the cloud, world. And so we just thought we'd focus on PACs. And then I said, well, actually you can, and here's how you do it. And our first call was like me kind of walking them through the work that I had done over the last couple of years. And I wouldn't say it happened by accident, because of course there are lots of intentional things that happen throughout an acquisition. But I certainly didn't go into the conversation thinking that I'm going to buy this firm. I certainly had exposure with mergers and acquisitions, with my time at that U.S. accounting firm. But I didn't ever think that I would do that for me. And it just felt like the right opportunity at the right time. They were two CPAs and they were looking to get out of public practice for at least a while, if not forever. And so, I ended up purchasing the firm in September of 2022.
We'll get back to the interview right after this word from our sponsor. Are you tired of feeling overwhelmed by compliance and stuck in the cycle of day-to-day bookkeeping tasks? Then it's time to reposition yourself as a high-value advisor and achieve the work-life balance you deserve. On March 4th at 4 p.m. Eastern, Lisa Campbell is kicking off the Accelerator Method Masterclass series, and you won't want to miss it. Discover the actual step-by-step method to escape compliance and overwhelm and build the business that delivers the lifestyle you want to live. Lisa will reveal the secrets to staying on top of everything, meeting deadlines, impressing clients, and attracting high-end clients to command the fees you deserve. This free masterclass series is an incredible learning opportunity to level up your bookkeeping business. Don't miss out. Visit thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/A2A to reserve your seat now. That's thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/A2A. Thank you for hearing from our sponsor. Now let's get back to the interview. That's pretty cool how things evolved and shifted. And so when you took over, what's that journey been like?
Oh gosh. Well, I think that, anytime you're looking at a merger and acquisition activity, and of course there's lots of that kind of activity happening now. So whether it's smaller bookkeepers that are kind of merging together to become, a larger bookkeeping practice, if it's larger accounting firms who don't have a solid cloud bookkeeping team, looking to acquire these bookkeeping practices as well. So there's lots of merger and acquisition activity going on. There is no perfect deal. There are so many nuances that go on with that kind of activity. There's personalities, there's work styles, there's tech stacks, there's expectations. There's so many elements and so many variables that you can have, some smoother transitions than others, but they are never, ever going to be easy peasy ever. they all require work. And so one thing that I was really grateful for is I felt that, my time at that firm really allowed me to be a student of mergers and acquisitions and have a lot more insights into at least the things that you need to be paying attention to, making sure you're not dropping the balls in different areas, making sure you have the support within the existing team to be able to work with an incoming team. I just learned so much that it really helped inform, what the team looked like going forward. We made a lot of adjustments very quickly because although it was full cloud, quote unquote full cloud, all of their clients were on QBO. They used Dropbox Online for everything. There was still, in terms of the way that they managed the firm, the workflows were very disconnected, not really automated. And so there was still, even though it was considered a full cloud firm, there was still a lot of adjustments that needed to be done to really get the data flowing how it needed to go and to get us all working together in a really great way. So that was September 2022. In October 2022, Melanie Schroeder from the BC area, she's since moved to Saskatchewan, but she joined us as tax manager and is now my partner and COO. And her coming on board with that tax expertise, because of course, the owners were two CPAs. I wasn't a tax expert. So how could I replicate that knowledge? The good thing is that you don't have to be the one to replicate the knowledge. You can hire those that do, know your strengths, but know when somebody else is stronger and lean to each person's strengths. And so she's just been an amazing addition to the team. And honestly, it would not have grown. It would not be what it is today without her. So eternally grateful for her.
Wow. And so now does the firm, it's really RealityTax.ca. You're not in specifically any particular province. You're right across the country.
Yeah. So this was one of the many changes is that when the firm was formed, it was formed specifically within Ontario. Again, these are two Ontario CPAs, who didn't want to have to manage additional licenses in additional provinces. But I'm not a CPA. So one of the first things that we had to do was actually deregister the firm because it could no longer be a professional corporation. So there was some other regulation and things that we needed to do just so that I could buy it from a legal perspective. But it also meant that I didn't have the restriction of working in only one province. So we have clients from BC to Nova Scotia and everywhere in between. And we were able to do that quite naturally, just with people hearing about our specialty. Our largest client is actually a real estate investment firm out of LA.
Wow.
Again, because, I had somebody in my network, which I know we're going to talk about, who, knew that I specialized in real estate. She didn't really specialize in real estate, and we got along well. And so, yeah, it's been a ride for sure over the last year and a half or so.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that. It's
thanks so much.
There's so many questions that I have that pop up out of that. I mean, just from your mergers and acquisition standpoint, that's interesting to think about. What are the key factors that someone would be thinking about if they did want to merge or if they wanted to sell? Maybe we can spend a little bit of time on that, and then we'll jump into, even on the realty tax, you're in a niche. There's, some of the benefits that come along with that would be interesting to cover as well. But I'm jumping ahead of myself here. I got to slow down. There's so much there. Let's talk about that. Before we go into the niche side of things, you've been evaluating and worked to evaluate, and then ended up buying your own firm. So when you were doing this work, what are some of the things that you would have somebody think about if they were thinking, maybe I do want to merge or eventually sell my business? What are some of the key things that someone should be thinking about?
I mean, honestly, the biggest one is why. Sometimes I feel like people feel like they're being left out of a trend or being left out, by not being courted by a larger firm or whatever. But essentially, why people acquire can be very different and very personal for very different, for different people. And so In some cases, it's you want to be growing faster, just from a, client list perspective, or is it possible to even buy a group of clients from a firm who's getting out of a certain industry or niche? So those are interesting to look at. But growing organically will always and forever be the cheapest way to grow, because growing by acquisition, it's expensive. Like if you've built your own firm from scratch, you don't have loans that you've had to get, to buy clients or to pay for a payroll that's now, 2 or 3 times what yours was on your own. And so just the nature of how the business works and what you need to be prioritizing, is really different. And so building organically will always be the cheapest and most natural way to go, of course. However, if it makes sense, if you can align values wise with a seller, if there's an acquisition a merger where, for example, a merger happened with 2 kind of peers of mine, where one was more of a financial planner and the other one was more of a tax person. So instead, they were even talking about individually, well, I want to get rid of this service line. I only want to focus on this. I want to get rid of all my my A service line clients, because I only want to focus on my B service line kind of thing, right? Except that they were both having the same conversation with themselves. So when they had it together, it was like, well, wait a minute. If you come on board, I don't have to get rid of those clients because you can do the service that I didn't want to do, and vice versa. And so it has created a really strong partnership between these 2 firms, basically these 2 solo run firms, where they can continue to serve 100% of both of their clients because they brought in the expertise to manage the service line that they didn't want to. So that was a really solid one. I mean, there was just an announcement this morning about MNP purchasing an EPR firm, one of those firms. So, I mean, it's something that's constantly happening, but I think the biggest thing you need to be considering is that why. Is it an ego thing? Is it a growth thing? Is it you have goals and you're not going to be able to get there on your own? You need some help. Some people acquire for clients, right? They want that client base that they can't get on their own or is quick enough on their own. Some acquire for talent. It's hard hiring out there. And so to be able to bring in kind of this pre-existing team that can do the work for you. The challenge, though, is when you're acquiring for talent, remember that they already have a client book and they're already full of clients. So the only way to be hiring people or to be bringing in team members that have, are starting with 100% capacity or starting with, completely empty, you can fill them up with work. Acquiring a team member is not a way to go because they will be coming with, full capacity, which makes it tricky to get things off your plate.
Very interesting. What a wealth of information that you would have, and wisdom and experience in that area is so valuable for you to have. Now, jumping over to the niche, right? A lot of people talk about the niche and the niche for our American listeners, so we know what we're talking about here. Yeah. We're not talking about a quiche. We're talking about a niche. So, what's it been like being, fully in that?
Yeah. I feel like each one of these topics, Michael, could be a whole separate.
It really could.
Podcast episode. So it has, it's certainly been educational, because I think that some people think that if you have a niche, that means that all clients that fall under that niche are automatically your ideal client. The industry of a client should only be one of many factors that makes up your ideal client profile. And so I think that we did a lot of learning of, okay, we've got this book of real estate agents. How many of these, with this new team, with this new leadership, with this new way of working, how many of these clients are actually our ideal client profile? And so even though, we had real estate clients, there were some that very clearly did not fit in with these new workflows, or our pricing structure, or, one of the other ways that we were redefining ourselves as a practice. And so, we've churned some out. We've taken on some fantastic clients. And I think just, continuing to refine what we want to be as a niche firm has been really interesting. Of course, people reach out to us because they hear that, we're the only accounting firm in Canada that focuses on real estate agents and brokers. And even when you look at the accounting firms that advertise a niche for real estate, in many cases, they actually mean real estate investments, property managers, and construction, and don't actually mean agents and brokers. And so when you get down to it, we're really the only firm that niches specifically in agents and brokers, because it's such a unique workflow, unique trends, unique expectations of that whole thing. And it was interesting. I think that one of the most important things in a niche reminds me of a conversation that I was having with somebody that I've known for years and years. And he was an investor in a new software that I was talking to him about using. And so he's like, well, I talked to other firms and they're like, we don't want to do anything. We want our client to do everything. So how can you set up this tool so that they're attached to us at a subscription level, but the client is actually setting them all up, and doing all of that? Our take was completely the opposite. If you're going to be a niche firm, I want my clients involved in any amount of technology setup as little as possible. I want to be able to do as much for my clients as possible because that's what they pay me for. And, my client basically just has to accept an authorization or, press a button to give an approval or something like that. But we actually want to make things as simple as possible on the client end. And I think that really kind of encompasses the spirit of a niche. When you're going to pick a niche or work in a niche, it's how can you kind of be all things to the people in that industry, so that you can really set yourself apart. We know that there's even ways that we work in general bookkeeping and financial statements and the way that we organize all of that, that I would not do as a general practitioner. There are things that we do in terms of, vehicle and mileage recording, all of those kinds of things, because we know that realtors, spend up to 90% of their time in a car or, going from showing to showing and all of that kind of thing. And so there are some of the ways that we work that are actually different because we know that realtors as a profile or as a personality, I don't know how to say that word, persona, I guess, work very differently. And so we have changed the way that we work to reflect that.
Right. And that's where the value starts to come in for the customer.
Yeah.
Is, it's just probably such a relief for someone to stumble across you, because I'm sure there's still many options in the marketplace that they would choose, and they could, you could just imagine the bumping around, and it is unique. And if you're working with someone who doesn't have that experience, the customer's part of the learning, which isn't going to be fun. But you've done it for a while, and your former owners did it for a while. You figured out a lot of stuff. There's a lot of intellectual property that you figured out to make life great for your clients, which is, that's I think part of the benefit
when we do new client inquiries, more often than not, I get like, oh, you get me. Like, you get how this works. You get that, I may have, a deal a week in the summer, and then I'm not going to have a deal again for the next 6 months. And how do I manage that from a cash flow perspective? Or how do we as their practitioner even get the information that we need from the brokerage to enable getting that kind of reporting for them? So it does present its own opportunities, but it definitely presents its own challenges. And you have to be willing to kind of go deep on those to solve those in order to be a really effective niche.
That's right. No, absolutely. Very cool, exciting. Love always talking about the niche. And I love the thought of, wait a second. It's not just because they are fit in our industry doesn't make them an ideal client. And we were previous episode talking about ideal client and how important it is and some ways to do that. And if our listener hasn't done that, you definitely want to get that sorted out for many reasons and have a better life when you do,
for sure.
And business. Before the show, we were talking about networking a little bit. You have built up a massive network in the industry. It's something that you do well. I'd love to know, where that started and what it's looked like throughout your career and how it's provided value for you in terms of just being a person who nurtures and builds a network.
Well, thank you. So first of all, again, I don't really feel like it was something that I need to have this huge network. It was just, I was meeting some really fantastic people. And, if there was ever an opportunity, you're talking to somebody and you hear that they have a certain need or that they offer a certain specialty, and then you hear of somebody else who needs that specialty or who can offer, something to help them. It's just been a really natural extension of kind of my problem solving is to put these two people together. And so I think it was really funny. When I was at Deloitte, I was there about 4 months when a partner approached me and he's like, "You've been here 4 months. I've been here 4 years. How do you know more people than I do?" And so, but it was just, I don't know if I mentioned this on the last time we talked about this, but it was like, I was in these calls where there were completely different people on the calls, but they were talking about each of these, I have a specialty in this, or I have a need for this. And I would get off the call going, well, then these two people need to meet. They need to, we can't keep having the same conversation over and over again. If I know a person with a solution to a problem that I'm hearing, yes, connect them. And I think that, even in that action of connecting other people that are valuable to each other, not intentionally, of course, and I'm certainly not at the center of it, but I am then probably a more valued piece of both of their networks, because, they now have a partnership that is serving both of them really well. I think of Guy Vadish all the time, who I adore. And he was mentioning one time, because I was kind of I've known him, since Deloitte years, so 2016, 2017, and was one of the first people to introduce him to the Intuit folks as an app and as, somebody that needed to talk. They needed to figure out how those tools could work better together. And since then, of course, they've gone on to do amazing things. And anytime I see Guy, it's the most warm welcome. Because he's but you were that first, or you were one of the first, and really helped kind of cement this, which completely changed the course of their business. So, of course, I don't go around thinking, whose business can I change the course of this year? It's just, putting myself out there enough to be meeting some phenomenal people, whether I work with them directly or just at the same place at the same time, or just, in the same room or at the same conference. There's always some phenomenal people. And, even if they can't serve me from a business perspective, just keeping in touch. In fact, going back to the challenges of hiring, this is one of the things that continues to come up is if you need a certain person or a certain skill and you see that someone has the potential for that, but isn't ready, keep in touch with them. Stay in touch and kind of follow their career. Don't stalk them. Don't be creepy. But there was one at FischBooks, and she had decided to go through and get her designation, and she had been working at BDO for years. And so we just kept in touch. Anytime we were at, an event and would see each other, we'd catch up, and we had kids close to the same age. And then I ended up bringing her on board at FischBooks, and I mean, she's going strong with her own practice in Brandon now, after we moved to the Kitchener area. So yeah, it's definitely worth it. And I think that it's just honestly, it's about paying attention. And
I think so. Like hearing that too. And I think it's also you're a generous person. Generous and courageous. I'd say, it takes something to recommend somebody. You're putting your neck out there, so you got to pay attention. There's work to be done, so that's generosity. And then you're putting your neck out there, which is courageous. That's a really powerful way of being, which has created a lot of value for the people in your network as well. Like you said, the guy, has changed the trajectory of his business, and that was big piece of what you've done. And I'm sure you get your own benefit from it, for sure. But seems to me it's more about that's not why you do it. That's the other piece, is when it's very authentic. It's just even so much better. You do it naturally.
It feels like, in a weird way, almost like that parental, when it's their success, it's also your success, right? Same with team members at your office, in your business. My team's success is my success. And I'm just as proud and excited if I had done it myself as if, one of my team members had done it. Or in this case, a member of my network has seen success out of it. It fills me in a way that's, that I can't really describe any way else, like immense pride. Not like the bad kind of pride. Like, I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of what they've been able to accomplish. I'm so excited for them. So yeah, it just kind of keeps going. Although once in a while, I can be a little selfish about it.
Well, good for you.
What's that?
I said that's good for you.
Yeah, sometimes it does come back. Again, you don't give to get, but I think that getting can sometimes be a natural reaction. And of course, going to what we were talking about before we pressed record, having that network and staying in touch with people who you admire or fascinating people, sometimes, they come back to affect your life in a really incredible way. So I don't know if it will be announced quite yet. Hopefully by the time this plays, everybody is bored of the news. But yeah, I'm very excited to be taking on the role of country manager for Dext. So basically a general manager for all of North America. Excited to kind of reintroduce the product to bookkeepers and accountants that haven't seen it for a while. Super excited to reignite some of the partnerships, back to strategic partnerships and getting those activated, not only through your own personal network, but, from a technology standpoint, how can we work better together? How can we be more than the sum of our parts? Once you get some of these technology partners working together, especially with, the AI elements that are now in play, it's a really exciting time to be in this space. And I've had, my foot in both the accounting and technology worlds for so long that I couldn't imagine doing one without the other. So I'm excited that Melanie's going to be taking on the day-to-day of RealityTax while I step back a little bit and attack this new challenge.
Well, yes. First of all, congratulations. I can't think of a better person to take that on. And I'm glad that you didn't drop it in the actual episode, because I would have been like, what? trying to, because when you did tell me, I was like, wait a second here. Because Dext is one of our partners of the Successful Bookkeeper community, and you're now our boss, in a way, so it's kind of a funny one where, you're a valued partner, and it's just, happenstance that you're on and you didn't even know. So
you didn't even know. No, I found out today when we were talking about it, which is amazing. It just feels like such a full circle because, back in the FischBooks days, it's my own, my little firm the first time around back in 2011, 2012, Brandon, Manitoba, and Receipt Bank, of course, at the time was one of the first apps that that I jumped in on with my clients. Actually, one of the first ones with a real estate agent, believe it or not. And and have been using it consistently since. And so, to know the product as well as I do, like I was there at the first QuickBooks Connect. I was at a dinner with Alexis Pren, one of the founders of Receipt Bank. And he was paying for dinner and take a picture of his receipt. And Chad Davis was also there. And he was like, hold on, guys, this is a meta moment. Pay attention. To Alexis using his own tool to make sure that our dinner was covered. And, now it's a decade later. And to be stepping into this role is just, it's just a new thing.
Very exciting. Very exciting. Can't think of a better person to do it, as I said, and exciting times for you. And it's really cool. And it was another thought that had come up when we were talking and just around the networking as well, is that you have such an interesting career. You've run a small business, but yet you've worked in some of the largest corporations out there, or a few of them, right? And so it must just be, when you're in these corporations, like the way you think, it's not a normal trajectory, right? And yet you still keep your feet in those other businesses, small and medium enterprises. I imagine such a valuable experience for you to bring to those larger organizations, and literally being able to say, hey, well, look, I'm leading this organization, but I am one of the people that you're both a customer and the leader of the organization. I mean, it's unique. I got to say, it's unique.
It is unique. I never would have guessed that the next step that I took would have been the next step that I took. If you look at like the last half dozen, roles and responsibilities and the roads that I've gone down, I never would have expected it. And yet they wouldn't have happened if everything before them hadn't happened. Right. So, I mean, honestly, I worked with Sabi Gill, the CEO of Dext. We worked together. We worked at Sage at the same time. He was the head of UK and Ireland. I was here working accountant channel in Canada. We never actually worked together, but we knew of each other. We respected each other. We, paid attention to the kinds of things that we posted, the kinds of people that we found inspiring. And so, sometimes there are those people that when they give you a call or when they ask you, hey, do you want to try this? It's like, you can't ignore it. Like, I respect you enough to at least have the conversation, and then you never know where it's going to go from there. And so this was one of those situations, but I would definitely say that one side has always informed the other. So, I mean, if you look at accounting and bookkeeping and tax practices in Canada, a team of 8, which is what we are at RealityTax right now, that's actually pretty average. In fact, most bookkeeping practices are like only 2 to 5. So, having a team of 8, knowing what those challenges are, and then, on top of that, being a niche firm, knowing the different specialties and the different things you need to think about in that respect. So that can only inform, going in to lead a team whose client base is my firm's profile.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, everything that I've learned at Sage, which I'm so grateful for, the product knowledge, the strategic, partnerships and alliances, all of those elements, just go and inform what I think is possible for Dext, not only from a technology standpoint, we've got a fantastic chief product officer, but also going in and trying to see how it can solve for different pain points and workflows. So, I'm excited.
Super exciting. Super exciting. Well, this is a beginning of a brand new chapter, a very exciting one. And this has been absolutely a valuable and interesting conversation. And so glad to be part of the conversation and releasing this information out to our community. And I know our community, our listeners, will be listening to you more as the leader of the general manager of Dext North America. I know a lot of our listeners are customers.
There's so much.
Yes, you will be meet and greet. You'll be a listener. You'll be meeting, I'm sure, Rachel at conferences and watching webinars and all good stuff. So stay tuned for more from Rachel.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Happy to see everybody for sure.
Wonderful. Well, Rachel, on behalf of our listener, I want to thank you for your generosity in being on the show.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Michael. Thank you.
Wonderful. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.